But we do want to talk about one thing. China, specifically James Paterson and Andrew Hastie having their, we've actually got the guy on the thing. We thought, how do we want to talk about this? Why don't we just talk about to the man involved? Senator James Paterson, welcome to the show.
Always good to be on the show with you guys.
Brilliant. So you and Andrew Hastie were going to go on a study tour to China, and tell us what happened after that.
Well, we're invited by an organisation called China Matters, which is an Australian organisation that promotes the relationship between Australia and China. And they invited us in full knowledge that we were highly critical of the Chinese Communist Party, but hoping that we would learn more about China on the trip. And we accepted on that basis. They were informed subsequently by the Chinese embassy that both Andrew and I were not welcome in China at this time. And just in case it wasn't sufficiently clear, the Chinese embassy put out a media statement saying that we needed to repent our views on the Chinese Communist Party.
So what are those views? What were you being asked to repent about?
Well, Andrew and I have been critical of a range of things of the Chinese Communist Party. Most importantly, the way in which they've encroached upon Australian sovereignty and the way in which they have affected the interests of Australians. Like the Australian citizen, for example, who's detained there right now on spurious charges of espionage, who's been detained without access to a lawyer, without access to his family, initially without charge, who's been interrogated on a daily basis and chained, physically chained. But also the plight of the Uyghur people in Xinjiang province, the situation in Hong Kong, their treatment of Tibet, their treatment of Taiwan, their militarisation of the South China Sea. These are big issues which all Australians should be concerned about, and Australian parliamentarians need the freedom of speech to be able to speak about, but China does not welcome that.
Interesting that you used the word that you were encouraged to repent about this, because repent was also the word used by Virginia Trioli when she interviewed you about this on her show. Pete and I heard this interview. It blew our minds. I think we've got a clip of it right now.
Yep.
I'm certainly not going to be repenting my political views on the command of an authoritarian foreign power.
I guess that's just the problem. If you start describing China as an authoritarian foreign power when they're supposed to be our close trading partner, and when, as your Treasurer Josh Frydenberg says, we must manage our differences, you're actually part of the problem, aren't you?
What about my description do you think is inaccurate?
So, James, do you think you are actually part of the problem?
Well, no, I don't. And I think actually it's attitudes like that from Virginia Trioli that's the problem. A taxpayer-funded journalist on our public broadcaster thinks that there's something problematic about correctly identifying that China is an authoritarian government and that they've abused human rights. And I'm not going to lie about those things to earn the approval of the Chinese Communist Party or Virginia Trioli.
Oh, I really enjoyed that bit because often, politicians are on the back foot from journos, but I just loved you responding to a question with a question. What about my thing was incorrect, Virginia? So that was great. If you get an opportunity, do listen to that.
What I want to say, though, is if Virginia Trioli is saying, look, China's a very important trading partner, we shouldn't be criticising them like this, you should repent, does that mean Virginia Trioli is also completely out on any criticism of Donald Trump? Because US is also a pretty important trading partner.
Yeah, exactly. And where does this lead us? Basically, we should say nothing at all about what's happening around the world. We should be completely silent about these things. That's the problem with some of these worldviews that you get from the ABC from time to time, sadly. I have to say, other interviews I've done on the ABC have not been like that at all. They've understood the seriousness of this. But whatever you think of me and whatever you think of Andrew Hastie, democratically elected representatives of the Australian government have been raising issues in our national interest and in the defence of human rights, and an authoritarian foreign government has banned us from visiting. That's not a good thing and shouldn't be a good thing in anyone's book. But the last person banned from visiting China was a German Greens politician who was banned for raising the plight of the Uyghurs. Does Virginia Trioli also think they should have been silent?
Absolutely. So, James, we just only wanted to grab you on to talk about this story. Thank you so much for joining us. It is so great that, you've been told by the Chinese government to repent for this and you just straight up refusing to do it. So really great to talk to you and keep up the good work.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.